want to sing along, but no one wants that. So
That is correct.
welcome everybody. This is Common Censored. That was Eleanor Goldfield on the microphone for Pyre or with Pyre or something.
No.
Everyone should check out the album No Solo. You're gonna love it. If you like that song, you're gonna love it. And I'm joined by Eleanor Goldfield. Wait, what are the odds? This is crazy.
Shameless self-promotion.
No, it's not self if I do it.
No, but it's self if I put my own song at the beginning of my podcast.
Oh, fair point. Fair point.
Yeah.
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 And when you held me down and starting to break my elbow if I didn't go along with it, I feel like that was a rough point. This is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes S&M.
S&M.
Well, holding you down, threatening to break your elbow.
Oh, gotcha.
That
Okay.
sounds kind of kinky to me.
Sometimes we get kinky. Sometimes we get kinky here at Common Censored, and it becomes common sensual.
Okay. All right.
No?
You're a kinky Jew. Ah.
So that's an inside joke that no one will get.
No, I just...
We actually, it's funny. I can tell real quick. We have a friend who sometimes worries that he offends people if he says the wrong thing.
And
anyway,
he sometimes does.
And he sometimes does. Anyway, I don't know. Someone made a comment about a long tongue, and then it sounded like he said, "You're a kinky Jew." And he knows that we're both Jewish by birth, atheists by choice. And so we laughed or whatever. We moved on. Then the following day, he was like, "Hey, it just occurred to me that you guys probably thought I said kinky Jew, and I said a kinkajou, which is a type of like
bird or something."
No, it's like a mammal, like a I don't know, ring-tailed lemur or tarsier. What's it called? Anyway, little animal that has a long tongue. So he did not say, "I feel like you're a kinky Jew," which made no sense in the context at that moment. It
didn't, but I wasn't offended. I was more just like, that's kind of a non sequitur.
All right, it's closer to a raccoon. But anyway.
Okay. Anyway.
So, let that be a note to all you wanting to reference kinkajous out there. People may believe you're calling them a kinky Jew. Shall we dig into political topics, or you want to stick on this one?
Sure. No, I feel like I learned something because I didn't actually know what the fuck a kinkajou looked like. I thought it was a bird. Anyway. So there's some news today.
We did it! Kinda. No, maybe? I don't know.
Well,
But
we should talk about who we is, and we should talk about what did is and what it is.
Which, it kind of is the classic analytical minds that we have. It's like, I'm going to say a sentence that's 3 words, and now we'll dissect each of the 3 words. Okay, we've already covered this on our live stream and things like that. By the way, we're going to start adding the live stream to the podcast as a separate episode. It'll be very clear which is which, but very exciting times coming up. That will happen soon. But anyway, that is not the point. We talked about this extensively on the live stream. There's also been posts about it. Many posts from many great outlets at radindiemedia.com. So most of you probably know the eviction moratorium expired. You got millions of people across the country that will be kicked out of their homes. And it began as one congressperson, Cori Bush, who is from Ferguson, Missouri, formerly homeless herself. And she is anathema to the mainstream Democrats in Congress. They fucking hate her. They don't want her there. They will probably try and primary her next time they get a chance and try and get her out of there. Anyway, this doesn't mean we agree with everything Cori Bush has ever said. There are plenty of things we disagree with. There are plenty of reasons we disagree with all Democrats. But in this moment, I think that she was genuine as a former homeless person, and she genuinely started this thing on the steps of Congress to create a movement. And I went down there a couple of days ago and saw what it was. It was 50 to 100 people, not tons. And she was there, and AOC and Jamal Bowman gave speeches. And
you should say, basically, these folks were holding space in protest against the so-called moratorium, which we can also mention briefly, expiring on July 31st. And the fact that Democrats literally rushed to close out Congress so that this wasn't made more of an issue by so-called by so-called progressives. So Cori Bush, slept outside on the steps of Congress that night and made the point that she was going to be out there, quote, as long as it takes, in order for the moratorium to be reinstated.
Yes, and the other people that came to join her, it seemed that many of them were the other Congress people. I mean, were kind of like, oh, I realize I need to show my face here or it'll look like I don't support it, so I'm going to run down and show my face real quick. Bernie Sanders showed up. And then you even got to the point where even Chuck Schumer showed up to give his support, which is fucking laughable because Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden are the reason this is fucking happening at all. Right. It's so hilarious. And so the new update is that they scored a partial extension on the moratorium on evictions. Certain parts of the country, it seems like it will impact about 60 to 70% of those who were going to be kicked out of their homes. And it's only for 60 days, and it's only 60 to 70% of the country. But that's better than nothing. You're talking millions of people that won't face eviction, at least for 60 days. So that is something. That is something to say that they won. But I think you guys already knew that part, and I think our job is to tell you why this is not enough and why it should be much bigger and why the political theater of at least the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi. By the way, Nancy Pelosi also tweeted, "I salute Cori Bush for getting this done." And you're like, what the fuck? You sent everyone home. And Nancy Pelosi could bring everyone back with the fucking flick of a pen or whatever. She could do it because she did it in December to override Trump's veto of the NDAA. She brought all of Congress back on vacation to override Trump and make sure the NDAA continued so they could keep bombing. So she is capable of doing that, and she did not do it for this.
No, she's a fucking landlord. I also think, this sort of volley...
Kamala Harris is a cop, Nancy Pelosi the landlord.
God bless America. I think this is a good time to point out the sort of volleying and the smoke and mirrors the Democrats are really fucking great at. I mean, credit where credit is due. The Republicans don't have that sort of cirque du soleil finesse that the Democrats have. So last Friday... Nancy Pelosi said that the Democratic leaders had just learned one day earlier that the Biden administration was counting on them to renew the eviction ban via legislation. Oh my God. I just found out.
No, it was such a surprise.
Because she
they
couldn't
already
possibly...
They had their lays on. They were headed to Hawaii. They couldn't possibly do anything.
So... because obviously, there was just so much going on. So the fact that, millions of Americans would soon be homeless, just, it hadn't come to her mind to address that earlier until she found out that Biden was counting on her. So she claimed the next day, contradictorily, that her and her colleagues had led a, quote, relentless campaign to extend the moratorium and then blamed Republicans that it didn't happen. But it can't be both, you fucking dick. You can't blame Biden for not telling you earlier, but then also say that you knew about it earlier, but it's the Republicans. It fucking can't be both. So that's Pelosi in a nutshell. I almost said nutbag. I don't know
in a nutbag
what the difference is.
Exactly.
But then after that, the Biden administration said that I can't do anything, but I'm going to keep trying to tackle the issue, and that it would direct federal agencies to, quote, re-examine whether there are any other authorities to take additional actions to stop evictions.
If only Biden knew someone powerful who could handle something like this.
Right.
If only there was someone around that had some sort of power.
But this is like the Anita Hill. I wish I could have done something. I wish I could have done.
You mean Biden said that, and he was
about the Anita Hill hearings,
and he was the one running that he was running.
And yeah, I wish I could have done something to address this situation that I had total control over. And so that was Biden saying.
That's also what he said about smelling women's hair. Right. I wish I could have done something, but it was not up to me.
So the White House statement said, quote, in the meantime, the president, while they're looking for federal agencies that could potentially do something about this, the president will continue to do everything in his power to help renters from eviction, end quote. Okay. So that's then Biden went on to basically blame the Biden and Congress went on to blame the CDC. Like, look, it's the CDC. So Pelosi even tweeted on August 1st, quote, the CDC has the power to extend the eviction moratorium. As they double down on masks, why wouldn't they extend the moratorium in light of Delta variant, end quote. This is hilarious. So then someone shared in response to that a screenshot from whitehouse.gov, which is, you guessed it, the White House site, that says that, and this is from, a few weeks ago, that the Supreme Court in June, the Supreme Court ruled that, quote, clear and specific congressional authorization would be necessary for the CDC to extend the moratorium past July 31st, end quote. That's on the fucking White House's website. and at the same time, the press release from a couple of days ago reads, President Biden would have strongly supported a decision by the CDC to further extend this eviction moratorium. The fucking White House website is contradicting itself, which is not really that unusual, but holy fuck. Like, this is just a little snapshot of those acrobatics that are going on within the Democrats. No, I couldn't do anything. No, it's this guy. I have no power here.
I bet it was the parliamentarian.
Right? It's like this is so classic Democrat. They always want to help, but they always just can't get the power to do it. We can't possibly figure. No, it's the Republic. It's, I'm pretty sure at some point someone's going to say Putin is behind the reason that they weren't able to extend the eviction moratorium.
I'm sure they probably already did. And not for nothing. And I'm going to go into a little more of this on Redacted tonight this week, but just remember that Nancy Pelosi is a huge real estate holder, her and her husband. So that's what we meant by Nancy Pelosi is a landlord. Huge holdings in real estate and investments in owning of, single family homes that who are renting. And then the Biden administration, especially on the economic side, heavily comes from Blackrock, one of the largest investment capital firms in the world, which owns billions of dollars of these single-family homes that they are renting out. Mm-hmm. So Biden's economic team comes from the people who directly benefit from evicting all of these people and from getting rid of people that aren't paying them lots of money. So, I'm sure that doesn't play any role.
Absolutely not, nor does the fact that this is a report from Daily Poster, which you can find via radindymedia.com. That the Essex Property Trust, which is a real estate investment trust, and real estate brokerage firm Marcus and Millichap, donated $1 million to the House Majority PAC that works to elect Democratic lawmakers. This happened just on June 1st. That donation alone amounted to nearly 7% of the total funding that the committee has raised so far this year. This same brokerage firm donated more than $250,000 in June to a joint fundraising committee benefiting House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's campaign, her leadership PAC, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the DCCC. Oh, that's awkward.
Interesting. And this is probably just one of many big real estate moguls and interests that donate heavily to the Democrats, and the Democrats feel heavily indebted to them. So
absolutely, but this is who's shoveling money into the coffers of Nancy Pelosi and Biden and the Democrats just before that quote unquote relentless campaign to extend the eviction moratorium, which, by the way, as I pointed out, sort of briefly, it was never a fucking moratorium. And I've written about this for Mint Press News. You can go back on Mint Press News, just type in my name in the search function and read an article about the fact that the moratorium is a misnomer, because moratorium suggests that it's not happening.
Zero evictions, but yeah.
But like mort, it comes from the word death, like it's done, no more. But that's not what the fuck the moratorium was. People were still getting evicted. Thousands, tens of thousands of people were evicted during the course of the pandemic, despite the fact that there was a so-called moratorium. So extending the moratorium, which, by the way, 60 days, fuck you, doesn't do anything to address the fact that so many people were falling through the cracks of that moratorium already. And it doesn't do anything to address, for instance, the fact that people, based on a recent report, Americans owe some $20 billion in unpaid rent. Well, in the initial language of that moratorium, it said nothing about addressing this unpaid rent. So that means that when the moratorium ends, whenever that is, if it's fucking tomorrow or if it's October or whenever the fuck, if it's 2023, you owe your landlord all the unpaid rent.
I know. And if you can't pay rent for that month, what are the odds you have whatever, $12,000, $20,000 of back rent?
It's like, look, I didn't have that $1,500 for March, but look, I've got the $20,000 I owe you for the past year and a half.
Yeah. Here, I just found it laying around. It was in the couch cushions.
So, I mean, this is absolutely fucking absurd to say, hey, look, we'll give you the stay of execution, but, when the time comes, you're still getting executed. Well, then that isn't a pardon, right? It's a stay of execution, which is really what the moratorium is, again, for those who haven't been evicted yet. And also, it's worth noting that Americans owe roughly $20 billion in unpaid rent. And this is another good time to point out that that Congress added $25 billion to the defense budget without the Pentagon asking for it. So, just some...
So perhaps they could have, who knows, used that to pay all of the back rent across the entire country and keep everyone in their homes.
And then you'd
Just
even
an idea.
You'd even
Just
have some money left over for like a slip and slide party or something.
A nationwide slip and slide party.
Nationwide.
Like a slip and slide that goes from New York to California.
I'm down.
So let's move on to Black Women's Equal Pay Day.
Yes, which is, I don't want you to get excited. That's not a thing. Black women are not paid equal. This is something that is being fought for. So August 3rd is known as Black Women's Equal Pay Day. And it's really a moment to highlight the two-headed beast of capitalism and racism, and really underscoring how when we talk about one, we have to talk about the other. We have to address systemic issues through an anti-racial, anti-colonialist lens. Otherwise, we're not getting the full picture. And, again, as this points out, gender also plays a role in this. So, for instance, Black women are paid 63 cents for every dollar paid to white men. 63 cents.
So that's only a bit higher than half as much.
Right.
If my math serves me.
Not to mention that Black women and, women in general, but in particular Black and Latinx women tend to work in I don't know if industry is the right word, but in jobs that are oftentimes unpaid, like a lot of care work,
right?
That is unpaid or grossly underpaid. Black women also lose almost $2,000 each month thanks to the wage gap. $2,000, that's rent. How apt that we were just talking about that. And overall this year, Black women will lose almost $1 million to the wage gap over a 40-year career. Black women will lose almost $1 million.
Yeah, so each woman is losing $1 million over 40 years. Yeah.
Right.
That's pretty fucking incredible.
It is. And again, this really just speaks to the need to address the intersections of identity. And this is not an identity politics thing. This is just a real life fucking thing, right? Black women are at the intersection of racism, of gender, and of course the, capitalism that we all exist under. But it's important to recognize these intersections, because unless we address these realities, we can't actually address the solutions. And I talked about this as well in an article about unemployment. If we're not talking about who's unemployed, in what sectors, who they are, then we're not talking about the real issue. Because, for instance, the fact that, last December, the majority of jobs lost were Black women, that we have to talk about that issue, because that means something very specific. Yeah. Whereas men actually gained jobs this past December. That is important information. We can't just look at the end total. That doesn't give us the information we need to actually address these things.
Well, and it's like I've said before, when people are like, not every issue is a racial issue. And it's like, that's true, but a lot of issues that are not racial issues are made worse by racial issues. So it's like wage theft exists across the spectrum. There's wage theft going on against white men across the country. There's wage theft against white women. There's wage theft against black. But it's greater for Black women, and it's greater for Black men. And so it's like even issues that are not racial, maybe in the headline, if you dig deeper, there is also a racial component. And like, like surviving a climate catastrophe. It's like climate catastrophes don't pick which racial group they're going to hit. However, getting through them is actually harder for Black people in our country, because they're more likely to be in housing situations that are more heavily affected by a flood or by something like that. They're more likely to not have the funds to just drive out of town and live at their other house. They're more likely to, it turns out FEMA is more likely to, because FEMA will buy up damaged homes to help the owners after a catastrophe. They're more likely to buy up white homes and pay out white owners for the catastrophe that's happened. So it's like each issue pretty much is always made worse by our systemic racism in our society. Mm-hmm.
And I'll put it this way. I think for the folks who say not everything is a racial issue, you're probably white. And I'm not saying that to earn, like woke points or whatever. I'm saying that as somebody who's been, privileged enough to be taken by the hand and taught some shit by organizers of color who have, given me, whether that be like reading lists or, education, to see things through that lens. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, that's not a racial issue. But when, as a good friend of mine says, there's no non-political space for Black people. And I think it's important to recognize that, because, everything is political. So therefore, being a Black person or an Asian person or generally like a person of color in the United States means that everything that you do, your existence, is a racial component. Not because of anything you did, but because of the system itself. So where you live, where you go to school, the food that you eat, absolutely every part of your life has that racial component.
See, that's the problem, is you got educated. If you hadn't learned that stuff, things would have been much easier for all of us.
I agree. Ignorance is
for all of white folks. Quick notes that if you want to see this show keep going, if you're enjoying it, even if you're just enjoying it $1 worth, It'd be awesome if you can go to liberapay.com/LeeCamp, liberapay.com/LeeCamp. That's the only place that you can support the show. We don't take ads. We don't take sponsors. Because I have a big Facebook page, I get like 2 to 3 offers, sometimes a week, of some company saying, we'll give you $600 a day, $1,000 a day to allow us to put ads all over your Facebook page or your website. And I turn them all down because I don't believe I should be doing that shit. And so that means that we're just supported by you for this show. So that's liberapay.com/LeeCamp, and check out radindiemedia.com. It's your daily digital newspaper if you're tired of mainstream vomitous propaganda.
Which, if you're here, you probably are. So check it out every day. Why not bookmark it? Make it your morning read. And, if you don't find anything good one day, maybe the next day you'll find some awesome shit. But you will find good shit every day.
Yeah, I mean, you will.
Let's just be honest.
And the other thing is, like, if you look at the little icon next to the source, it'll show you whether it's a little TV, a little microphone, or a little newspaper, and you can decide, do I feel like reading something? Do I feel like watching something? Listening? And you can decide like that. So.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. That's our new catchphrase. It's a beautiful thing. All right.
So this is just kind of a quick little update that I'm sharing via the Jailhouse Lawyers Speak organization. They are calling for national shut 'em down demonstrations on August 21st and September 9th, calling basically for the abolition of prisons. And the pandemic did a lot, or has done a lot because it's not fucking over. The pandemic has done a lot to really strip the sheen of capitalism, right? A lot of things that were, I wouldn't say they were hidden, because if you were looking, they were definitely there. But they were a bit more opaque, became a lot more clear during the pandemic. And one of those was the absolute, the absolute quagmire, the abyss of human rights violations that our prisons are in this country. And, obviously COVID has had a grand old time in prisons because they're basically just giant fucking petri dishes for any kind of virus.
Well, the nice thing is they're all overcrowded. So COVID was like, you mean you got 7 people stacked in a 2-person bunk bed? This is perfect for me.
Right.
This is my home away from home.
So, so last year there were at least 106 COVID-related rebellions in the United States in prisons.
How many did you hear about on MSNBC?
Right. So that's really fucking impressive. And as prison abolition organizers say, like, we have a job as folks on the outside to support and amplify these actions, and also to do our part on the outside. And this is what they're calling for on August 21st and September 9th. And you might be wondering, why the fuck are these dates the ones that they picked? And these dates are actually very significant in the Black liberation struggle against the prison industrial complex. And now I'm pulling from an article in Truth Out by Ella Fassler. This one is also on radindiemedia.com. August 21st, 1971, prison guards assassinated George Jackson at the San Quentin State Prison in California. You might be familiar with him. He was an incredible organizer and revolutionary with the Black Panthers and with the Black Liberation Movement. And the next day, incarcerated people at Attica Correctional Facility went on a hunger strike in his honor. And on September 9th, 1971, more than 1,200 people took over the prison, demanding an end to slave labor and improved living conditions. 4 days later, Governor Nelson Rockefeller ordered New York State Police to brutally suppress the rebellion, and 29 incarcerated people and 10 hostages died in that raid. So that is the significance of those two dates, and that is why the Jailhouse Lawyers Speak organization, JLS, is calling for people on the outside to organize on those 2 days to uplift the voices of incarcerated folks and to call for an abolition of these prisons. So, They're also urging supporters to hold demonstrations at ICE concentration camps, higher learning institutions with ties to prison labor, and jails and prisons across the United States to highlight these struggles. So you can go to the JLS website, and that website is
.com. No. So that's spelled with 3 B's,
okay,
4 A's.
All right, are you done?
2 D's.
All right.
.com.
It's actually kind of a long URL, so I'm just going to put it in the show notes. But you can find them on...
What could they Google to find it?
You could find Jailhouse Lawyers Speak. You can also find them on Twitter, and there's a link to their site there at Jail Law Speak. And
I told them when they were doing it that Jibbidibidibidoo was not a good website because it was going to be hard to get people to go to it. But.
All right. And on their Twitter you can find everything from swag that goes to support incarcerated folks, information on various actions that are already planned, etc., and of course, like I said, links to their website.
Cool. So what else we got?
Well, Lee, you mentioned Blackrock earlier, and
so wait, you don't mean they're involved in something else, do you? Because I thought they only did one bad thing.
They are, if not they are one of the largest asset management firms in the world.
Yeah, I think they might be the largest.
And I don't really know what that means. You
said ass hat management, right? They are the largest ass hat management.
Basically, what that means is that they own a shit ton of horrible projects, including things like, luxury condos or pipelines or coal mines. And that is really what I'm talking about with this next story. This is something that's been ongoing now for 4 months, but you wouldn't have fucking heard about it on corporate media. Warrior Met coal miners are now into their 4th month on strike. They started 4 months ago, and they recently took their fight to Blackrock. So first, a little bit of information, about Blackrock. So this large asset management firm, they own, like I said, they own all kinds of dirty energy projects. I'm pretty sure they're involved with Line 3. They
own Joe Biden.
And they are a majority stakeholder in Warrior Met, this mining company in Alabama. And this is not uncommon, right? There is no like mom and pop coal. This is like, these are massive corporations that own not just like the land, but also the labor practices, the workplaces themselves, all of the machinery, et cetera, et cetera. So they own these workers, and this is not lost on the workers. So late last month, these United Mine workers went to New York, went to the headquarters of Blackrock, and staged a massive protest outside. And there are pictures.
Yep.
There's like
filling the streets.
There's a bunch of them. Of them, basically
kettled into free speech zones.
I know, which is really just special.
Your free speech is from here to here, not over there. You have your free speech from here to here. So your foot's on the line. You got to move that foot. Your foot's on the line, sir. Your foot is out of the free speech zone. Well, my foot's not speaking. It doesn't matter. Your foot is out of the free speech zone. It's from here to here. Here to here, you can have free speech.
Yes.
Should I keep going?
What he said. So basically, there were miners that came in from Alabama, Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia.
So kids under 18.
Oh,
minors. Okay, sorry. Man, you are a rough audience.
Okay, because I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone.
Go back to the zone.
You're not usually doing comedy for people in the zone.
Are you in the danger zone.
Okay. You can't start quoting Archer. That's not fair. That's mine. I quote Archer. You quote...
I can quote anything I
you
want.
quote Simpsons. Okay, anyway.
I haven't quoted The Simpsons in years. That was a quote from episode 32.
So this all started... take a walk into the past with me. This all started on April 1st when miners walked out in order to demand the reversal of a $6 an hour wage cut and other concessions that the UMWA had agreed upon in 2016. Now, this is all happening against the backdrop of this company, Warrior Met, making massive fucking profits, along with a demand by global steel producers for a metallurgical coal. And it's set to announce its second quarter profits in a few weeks, and they're expected to be fucking massive. And yet at the same time, they're like, you know what? I just couldn't find. I've emptied my pockets, and I don't know. There's no money for paying workers, and actually, we're going to have to cut what we promised because it's just I don't have it.
And you know how we said we'd give you health care? About that. About that.
Yeah,
we're not doing that.
This is a very common theme as well. That
I misspoke, and I meant we'll give you wealth care, and I meant me. I will care for my wealth.
This is very common too because coal miners have obviously, not obviously if you're not familiar with the stories, but coal mining is incredibly fucking destructive to the human body. And black lung cases have actually risen because of the fine silica dust that's kicked up nowadays as opposed to traditional coal mining, which I'm not going to say was fucking, a walk in the park. That was hugely dangerous in other ways. But today they do mountaintop removal, which is basically just decapitating a mountain. They've got huge machines that they bring in. But the dust that they kick up from accessing these coal seams really fucking gets in there in your lungs and just doesn't get out. So you just slowly choke.
This is why the expression is not canary in the office park or a canary in the cubicle. There's a reason the canaries are in the coal mine. It's because they drop dead.
Yeah. And when they do, that's bad.
That's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Because then the coal miners drop dead. So actually, at this point, I don't think we have any more canaries. They're all dead. So the interesting thing here is that the union, UMWA, the United Mine Workers of America, have also kind of turned on the miners here a little bit.
This is not that uncommon, actually.
They attempted to push through this is the World Socialist website that I'm reading from, what they're calling a pro-company contract within weeks of the start of the strike. And since then, the UMWA has isolated the embattled miners and tried to starve them into submission with poverty-level strike pay. And basically what that means is if you vote to go on strike, the union is supposed to have your back and say, well, we'll make sure that you have wages so that you can survive.
They have a huge savings account in the tune of millions of dollars to pay their unions to go on strike when needed. Mm-hmm. And so they're supposed to pay the workers to be on strike. But like you're saying, they're trying to stop them from being on strike.
Right.
Kind of the polar opposite point of a union.
Yeah. So that's been a little bit awkward, to say the least. However, at this action in New York, the UMWA president, Cecil Roberts, was there along with some local UMWA officials. Susan Sarandon was there, and she's just popping up at all these fucking rad events, which is really cool.
She's pretty awesome, yeah.
And the president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, and this is Stuart Applebaum, who also helped lead the effort to unionize Amazon workers in Bessemer, Alabama, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But so these folks were rallying outside of the Blackrock headquarters, and just really, which I think is a really awesome moment to highlight like a few things. One is that let's stop talking about coal miners or really just like these workers that work on, dirty energy projects as fucking idiots, as all bad. Again, as I've mentioned in my film, Hard Road of Hope, these people don't have a choice. If your choice was to watch your family starve or to work in a coal mine, I think every one of us would say, give me a fucking pickaxe or whatever they're using these days.
And there's not a lot of jobs open for canaries. So I
wait,
think
does the canary have the pickaxe?
They have to take what they can get.
So this strike is ongoing, and I think it's really fucking cool to uplift this, and really, really, really important. And the other thing I wanted to highlight about them going to Blackrock is the understanding of this class analysis that's happening, understanding like the machinations of capitalism that mean that the owner of your fucking business is in a New York high rise while you're busting your ass down in fucking Alabama.
It's surprising that they're even in America.
That's
Half
true.
the time it's like China.
That's true. Or like with Enbridge, that's a Canadian company that's pushing through the Line 3 pipeline.
And they are not sorry about what they're doing. They're not sorry at all.
No, like I was telling my Canadian friend today, y'all have like a really great marketing firm. And like the US doesn't, but like people still talk about Canada like, oh, they're so polite and they're so nice. And I'm like, so you didn't hear about the fucking
residential schools
where they just dug up like hundreds of fucking kids? Like, I guess, okay.
Well,
we're real sorry about that.
First of all, yes, the Canadian government is sorry about that. But I think it's that in general, Canadians are kind of nicer, more friendly. But
that's true.
Yes, there are sociopaths that are running things in Canada and in the United States similarly.
Yeah, and just
because when the sociopath in Canada comes up and goes, I'm taking all this shit and I'm fucking everybody. And then even more so than in America, the Canadians are like, okay, we're sorry. We're sorry. We'll back up. We're sorry. You take whatever you need, sir.
Yeah. So I think it's also worth noting that like we said earlier, Blackrock is in fact the world's largest asset manager with $9 trillion in investments, which I don't even know
that number
what that means.
Insane. The stock market is like 30 trillion or something. Like that's like a third of the stock market.
It's
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, as I always say, if you make $40,000 a year, don't worry about it. You can do it. You can do this. Just put your mind to it. If you make $40,000 a year to make $1 trillion, you only need to work for 25 million years. So put your mind to it.
Get to work, folks. Just a final thing before we move on from this story. We mentioned that Biden has ties to Blackrock, and that's very true. Biden's administration is packed with former Blackrock executives. That whole fucking revolving door thing.
Yep.
That the head of Biden's National Economic Council, which advises the president on economic policy, is a former Blackrock exec. A Treasury Department deputy secretary. And, on and on and on.
And in Kamala's office as well.
Right. A Michael Pyle, who is BlackRock's former global chief investment strategist, is a chief economic advisor to VP Kamala Harris. Isn't that nice? Oh. And
she didn't want to be left out.
He actually worked in Obama's administration before joining BlackRock. So, that revolving door is super well oiled. They've got all the WD-40 they need. And it's also worth noting that the UMWA has allied itself pretty closely with the Biden administration, and this also serves to promote a lot of sort of Republican appreciation among folks who are mine workers, because a lot of the unions, whether that be AFL-CIO or in this case the UMWA, align themselves with corporate Democrats. And they could just as easily align themselves with Republicans because the end result is the fucking same. But they outwardly say, like, hooray Clinton, hooray Obama, hooray Biden. And what this really does is because, like I said, these people aren't fucking stupid. They see, okay, well, my union is aligning with Biden. What am I getting out of it? Oh, that's right. I just got shafted. Well, then fuck the Democrats.
Right.
So this just serves to perpetuate
as if the Republicans are going to protect them. But,
of course.
yeah.
I'm not saying that their analysis is correct.
I know.
But it really just goes to show, and this is something that you'll hear all across, in particular the South, just, I'm using that as my example because that's what I'm most familiar with. You hear again and again, I don't fucking trust the Democrats. I mean, you shouldn't trust the Republicans, but I get that you don't trust the Democrats because, like I mentioned earlier, they're the ones doing this Cirque du Soleil bullshit. They are far more conniving and insidious and nefarious. The Republicans are kind of like out and out about their, like, not fucking caring about you.
Yeah.
The Democrats aren't. And so I think, actions like this just serve to, and issues like this just serve to perpetuate this problem of predominantly, these are predominantly white, poor white folks falling into the clutches of extreme right-wing politics as opposed to leftist politics. And I think, actions like this ongoing strike are great moments to really collaborate with these mine workers, not swoop in and be like, hey, let me tell you how to fix your, like, don't fucking do that, but to collaborate and say like, hey, you want better pay, you want healthcare, this is what we're fighting for. Let's join forces, and making it into a more collaborative action of solidarity as opposed to just like this one-off action about mine workers. So I think that
the moment
the
moment workers unite and realize their power once we're all together is the moment the whole system changes.
Absolutely.
But of course, you've got endless propaganda, endless effort to make sure that never happens, to make sure we divide, they divide and conquer, to make sure we hate each other, to make sure we go at each other, and they do a beautiful job of it. You got to compliment them sometimes.
Cirque du Soleil, I'm telling you.
So we got time for one more topic. Shall I jump to our little philosophy discussion?
I just wanted to mention real quick because I said I was going to mention it.
Nope. Go ahead.
That an officer at the National Labor Relations Board has ruled that Amazon illegally meddled with the union election in Bessemer, Alabama, and that the election must be rerun. So...
And we talked about that at the time, that
right.
Things seem shady.
Keep your eye on that because this is a story that's ongoing. We're not really sure how this is going to play out, but an important step, basically saying that for those who don't remember, the election result was no union, and Amazon was like, "Oh, bummer, we had nothing to do with that." And of course, this is proving that they did, and they fucked with the election results. They fucked with people ahead of the election in ways that are...
They turned off the red lights leading into the parking lot.
Right. In ways that were like explicitly illegal, even according to, like federal law. The National Labor Relations Act of 1935 states that it's illegal for employers to interfere with or retaliate against workers involved in union activity, including by surveilling or creating the impression of surveillance of union organizing, which is basically all the fucking...
That's all Amazon does.
That's all Amazon does.
That's their specialty.
So...
I kind of feel for them because that's like taking away their favorite thing. Like their favorite thing. They love it.
I know, it is their toy. But you know what? Bezos has a fucking rocket ship now, which I could go into why that means he has a small penis, but that's a story for a different time. So I just wanted to let folks know about that. So keep your eyes and ears open for that and coming updates. So yes, Lee.
All right, let's do a quick philosophy discussion that is very important and tied into everything we're talking about. So you've heard the expression, you've heard people talk about how, how capitalism robs people of their souls. And I feel like I've even used that expression, but I haven't thought of it in like in a literal sense it does. And that's what I've started thinking about recently. And these are not new thoughts. I'm not acting like I came up with a new idea. I just, happened to have cobbled together a couple of other people's ideas, and I assume others have done this. So I'm not claiming this as anything new, but
as the saying goes, there are new ideas, new ways to feel them.
There are no new ideas under the sun, which is why I only work at night. So capitalism. So if you believe in even a bit of existentialism, which, you and I both enjoy, one of the kind of main tenets is that existence precedes essence, meaning you are on this planet, you are alive before your essence, and some may call it your soul, is decided. And as you go along in life, you create your soul, you create your essence, you create what it is you do. And anybody who believes we have some degree of freedom, this does not mean pure and utter freedom, but some degree of freedom probably agrees with a fair amount of that we decide who and what we are to some degree. Now, you place meaning upon your life. It's not there from the get-go. Right. You place meaning upon your life. And now that doesn't mean we have pure freedom, because you and I have also talked a lot about the forces upon people, like economic force. Many people are forced to do things they do not want to do or enjoy. So there's many forces upon people. People are not free. None of us are truly free. Now, some are more enslaved to things like debt than others. I'm lucky. I don't have any debt because I came up in a family where if I went in state, my dad could pay for my college. And so I didn't graduate from college owing thousands upon thousands of dollars to that college. So it's incredibly lucky to be like that. And other people have these forces on them. I get that. So you exist, and then you find your essence, find your soul, so to speak. Capitalism, using these forces, for many people, I'm sure plenty of you listening right now, it forces them into jobs they don't want to have, into wage slavery. And we've all heard the term wage slavery. In order to exist in this world, many people have to take jobs they hate. Even if you liked it on day one, you may hate it 5 years later, but you stay in it because guess what? You got health care, and you got the ability to pay for your rent, and the ability to take care of your kids. And so you may despise going to fucking work, but you keep going because that's the system. How else are you going to do it? How are you going to get by? And so by doing that, by forcing you into that, forcing you into debt, forcing you into jobs you hate, it is taking away, for many people, their ability to follow their passion, to follow what it is they enjoy doing, what they want to do. In many cases, kids are not even trained early in their lives, you should seek to do what you want to do. In many cases, kids are told, no, you're going to become a lawyer, a teacher, or whatever, because that'll pay the bills. Many parents say that. It's like, look, it's all about paying the bills. Here's how you pay the bills. It doesn't matter what you fucking enjoy. Fucking enjoying something does not come into play. And you get robbed of the chance to find your essence, which is your soul. So in many ways, quite literally, capitalism robs people of their soul.
Yeah.
And I hope that made some sense.
It did. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this is, I think this might be one of those moments. Like there are no new ideas, just new ways to feel them and have them articulated. I think for the most part, people probably feel this. People feel detached from themselves, from community, from, the things that make up like one's soul, a feeling of being a part of a community, the feeling of being fulfilled,
of your labor doing something that you really appreciate,
right?
And can respect.
But there might not be like an analysis to put to that feeling. There might not be the words to put to that, because the programming suggests that in those moments, well, that's just you fucking being depressed. Here, have a pill. Shut the fuck up. No one wants to hear you fucking moaning.
Yeah,
and
whine
bitching.
about how you hate your job. Yeah.
Right. And if you're not an optimist, if you're not happy all the time, that's also your fault. How could you not be happy? You live in America. It's the most wonderful country in the world.
Right.
So it's really like, again, like this feeling is, it's not your fault. It is the capitalist system that is, I remember, God, what is that movie? Or it's a movie based on a book. Oh,
Idiocracy.
The Golden Compass, which is it's actually like a children's book or like a teen book that I remember loving when I was younger. But there's this like evil witch, or it feels very corporate actually. She's like the head of some company, I believe, that is separating people from their souls, and the souls in this book are manifested in animals that walk alongside you for your entire life. And so she has this project that separates these children from their souls. And it is grotesque. It is horrific. And of course, when I read that, I wasn't thinking, oh, that's like what capitalism does. But like later on, when I saw the movie, when I was older, I was like, oh, fuck, that's exactly what's happening. And it's really like, I think that, seeing it or hearing it in that way is a very powerful affirmation of things that people feel inherently, but maybe can't figure out how to vocalize or feel unsure about vocalizing because they're like, but wait, I've been told that if I feel this way, it's just because I'm a failure.
Right. And I like that you brought up don't know how to vocalize it, because I think part of the reason that philosophy is not funded by our government, and it's not really heavily taught in schools, and philosophy departments in colleges have shrunk to an anemic level. Part of the reason for that is because if you keep people from having the vocabulary to describe what it is they feel, they can't turn against it. They can't rise up against it. They can't organize around it. You have to understand what it is that's causing your pain and your misery and your sorrow in order to even begin to kind of organize an effort against it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so important to, to create these spaces, whether that's a community reading club or just like a space to bat around these kind of ideas, because it is so important to throw these things out in the open and have those moments where, I mean, it's definitely happened to me where I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one who felt that way. Oh, fuck. Cool. And yeah, I mean, and you're not. And this is really, and this is one of the reasons that I love philosophy, is that it really, the whole point of philosophy is to question and to examine what it means to be human, what it means to be human in our space and time, whenever that philosopher is writing. And there are some truths that seem to just echo across the waves of time. And this is one of those, even though, existentialism is 20th century philosophy, its roots go back a lot further. These philosophies literally build upon each other. So yeah, I think this is, I'm not saying you have to be a philosophy nerd. I get that not everybody is. But these concepts.
Well, no. Yeah, I'm not saying people got to run out and read all these books, but I'm saying once you understand this concept, it's powerful to know, to put a name and an understanding on what it is you're feeling.
And it also makes it so much more of a, like, I mean, I don't want to say moral imperative, because moral feels like such a sticky word. Mostly thanks to the church, but it makes it so much more of like a deeply human imperative. I'll say it that way, a deeply human imperative to kill capitalism, because capitalism is the antithesis of our actual humanity. Yeah. And so it really just speaks to that deep need for, to borrow from Robespierre, who said that Louis must die so that France can live. Capitalism has to die so that we can live.
And I'll just close on this. If you ever want to get into a debate, or you ever find yourself in a debate with your friends over capitalism, all you need is 1 or 2 sentences. Capitalism is the idea of infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. How does that end?
Mic drop.
Then you walk out. And if the guy's named Mike, you punch him in the face. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us. But if you got $1, I mean, how did you not get $1 out of this? Go to liberapay, liberapay.com/Lee Camp and become a member over there. You guys are the only ones that support this show. Also, radindiemedia.com. It is free, and it is your daily digital newspaper for non-corporate propaganda, horseshit, dumpster fire, twat faces.
It's not that.
It's not that.
Right.
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of that. It's the antidote. It's the fire hose for the corporate dumpster fire, okay? So go check it out. And all of Eleanor's work is at artkillingapathy.com. If you not enjoyed, but if you felt you learned from some of these stories about what's going on with minors, then I think you'd get a lot out of her movie, hardroadofhope.com. Very important movie, won all kinds of awards. It's truly tremendous. And it's at artkillingapathy.com, as well as her new album, No Solo. If you need a little bit of assistance, we also have a solidarity fund, and you can email commoncensored@protonmail.com. This is not, I need a new car so I can get to work. This is, we might be able to throw you $80 or something from the solidarity fund, where we take donations and then give them back to you. We're like the middle people that take no money. So commoncensored@protonmail.com. All right, until next time. Oh, we're off next week.
Yes, I was just going to say that. There won't be a new episode next week, so maybe listen to this one again. Maybe listen to it backwards and see if we say anything fucked up, like about Satan, if you play it backwards.
There won't be a new episode next week, but we will be introducing the live stream episodes soon to the podcast, which I think you guys will really like if you haven't been watching those on YouTube. All right, until next time.
Act out.
Keep fighting.